Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Heart Chamber. I am your host, Boots Knighton. I am very excited today because I am bringing on a woman that came into my life at the right time. Talk about being in flow. I want to introduce to you my nutritionist and right-hand woman in health, Nurse Georgie. I am so grateful Nurse Georgie moved to Jackson, Wyoming during the pandemic and started up her own business, So Courageous, in the Tetons to bring a higher quality of life to people who are willing to give it a try. Because you have to be willing to choose health and you have to be willing to put your health first. So, Nurse Georgie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Booth. It's been an honor to help guide you through this kind of like not ending chapter, but it seems like so much of what you've been through has been wrapping up and progressing into a place where you're now telling your story and you're not in the thick of it. And so it's an honor for me to get to like witness that and help you in any way possible.
Well, thank you. And I really felt like when I first walked into your office, I wanted to introduce myself as a dumpster fire. Because I feel like I was like playing this game of whack-a-mole. And just in case like listeners maybe didn't catch the first episode where I tell my story, the real quick and dirty of it is I had open heart surgery for a congenital defect. Then I had two more thoracic surgeries because my poor little sternum just was really offended by the first surgery, and in the process, my mother died, and so I was under an incredible amount of stress, and plus all of that happened during COVID and our democracy kind of, being under threat, and then the threat of nuclear war with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, we're just not immune to all these outside stressors plus the inside stressors, and so my body just felt like it had been under siege for a while. And so I stumbled into Georgie's office via my amazing physical therapist. And Georgie and I just kind of hit the ground running. And I felt like you and I were like peas and carrots from the start. Not that I really like peas, but we went together well.
We fit together well. And yeah, if you don't mind me saying like, what you said at that first at that first session, you basically were like, I'm not sure what I want to do or what I don't want to do yet. And I was like, okay, well we'll figure that part out together. We'll jump in and we'll figure out that part together. And yeah, and then we were off to the races.
Mhm. And I really didn't know what I was signing up for. And listeners, if you stick with me long enough, you'll come to realize that like I have this uncanny sixth sense. And I feel like I walk around with like a little angel on my shoulder all the time, kind of like directing me and where I need to go. And especially since heart surgery, I've just been turned into like this barometer and I can just sense things with so much. Like my awareness is just so much more acute. And so I just knew I needed to see Georgie, but I wasn't exactly sure why. And little did I know how much my life would change for like the dramatically better. And so I need to just tell you a little bit about Nurse Georgie and how amazing she is before we really get going because Homegirl is like really qualified. So she's a registered nurse and a certified nutritionist, and she is a nationally recognized speaker in the field of functional nutrition. She's got a Bachelor of Science degree in health sciences from the University of Minnesota. She also has another degree in nursing sciences from Sacred Heart University. She can treat whatever ailment it seems like you have. For me in particular, I have IBS, which is just a separate super fun thing to deal with. But then also talk about dumpster fire. When I showed up in her office, I had water retention. My cortisol was okay, but my estrogen was all out of whack. And she was able to pinpoint that when other like places couldn't. I mean, even the Mayo Clinic missed it. And so she really knows her stuff. And so we're gonna kinda dive into my case a little bit, and I've given her permission to share. There's just nothing to hide here. I just want to help people heal. And I want Georgie to tell you about the amazing company she has partnered with for supplements because I have never experienced such a powerful supplement that has really radically affected my body in a positive way. So I'll stop gabbing and let Georgie take the mic because she's a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you so much, Boots. What do you want me to start off talking about in terms of the whole process? What's your vision?
Well, my vision is like, let's start with like my detox because I make up that most open heart surgery patients would benefit from that.
Okay.
Particularly if you go back and folks who are about to have surgery or have already had it, it's important to go back and look at the surgery notes and see all the chemicals they put in your body, and it is amazing how much fentanyl I have had put in my body, plus with all the heart catheterizations, I had 3 in a year and a half. It just is a lot for the body, so let's kick off with that.
Okay. I love that. Yeah, I think that the way I was trained was kind of interesting. So, right as I got out of college with a bachelor's in health sciences, I met my ex husband. And my ex husband is a functional medicine doctor. And much like you, Boots, I had my own stuff going on. And I had really tried with modern and Western medical providers and practitioners to really get my body back to the way I knew it should be. You know, much like you, IBS, I had all these other health problems as well. And I was just kind of being thrown on all these medications and no one was really giving me answers or telling me why they thought I was going through all of these health problems at such a young age. It was my skin, my digestion, my anxiety, my depression. I wasn't sleeping like at all. I would go days
Mm.
without sleeping. And, it was destroying my life. And when I was introduced to functional medicine, it was from a point of just like a river or a lake, the body can accumulate waste. And that waste can be from chemicals in our atmosphere, it can be from pharmaceutical medications. And when I say chemicals in our atmosphere, you think antibiotics in our water supply, birth control that seeps into our water supply, cleaning agents that we use to industrially clean our water, chlorines, fluorides, other types of bromides, exhaust in our air. Like there's a million different ways at which chemicals can come at us through our environment, hormones in our meat, heavy metals in fish, and none of it's there on purpose. Like no one's like putting it there to harm us. It's just a byproduct of us living in a modern world. We create chemical waste that's synthetic and inorganic. And for thousands and thousands of years, our bodies have never had to filter out or detoxify these chemicals. But since the Industrial Revolution, they have. And evolution doesn't
Mm.
kick quite that quickly. Like evolution doesn't kick in 100 years or whatever. So we're in a position where we're seeing all of these symptoms and syndromes of chronic toxicity. And through my training, it became very, very clear that when you toxify the body, you need to untoxify the body because stuff doesn't just like get eliminated on its own, or it can cause immunological reactions, chronic headaches, chronic fatigue, IBS, anxiety, insomnia, skin issues, fatty liver disease. Fatty liver disease is like, if it's non alcoholic, is now being seen as a disease of too much sugar and processed foods, right? And those are just chemicals that, again, we've
Wow.
created in lab. And so
Mhm.
you look at people who are struggling from chronic issues such as like IBS, a lot of times when you look at the patient and see what's going on with them and then support their system nutritionally, there's this kind of like releasing of all of the things that are ailing the patient. And I don't treat symptoms, but I support my patient and where I see they need that support. And I would say most of the time, there's symptom resolution as a side effect of supporting the system with nutrition. When we look at, well, how do we support the patient with what nutrition specifically, with what nutrients specifically, it's about doing a thorough medical history. It's about talking to the patient about what they've been through. With you, we ran the Dutch test. And the Dutch test looks at urinary metabolites. And then we're able to infer what's going on in the body based off of urinary metabolites. And for you, we found that like estrogens were really, 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 really high. And in medicine,
Mhm.
estrogen dominance can cause symptoms that, of anxiety, IBS, inflammation. And so when we were structuring out your detox specifically, we were like, okay, we want to get the inflammation out of your body. We want to support your gut health and we want to help support the elimination of unwanted estrogens. Estrogens are interesting because we get estrogens from endogenous estrogens that we produce from our female sex organs, but we also get estrogens from our environment. A lot of synthetic man made chemicals are treated as estrogens in our body because chemically and molecularly they are very similar. So, when you're thinking about how hormones work in the body, like if you produce an estrogen molecule, let's say that estrogen molecule is docking on a cell. Well, the cell has a little receptor site, and the estrogen molecule docks onto the receptor site, turns on the cell receptor site like a key. The cell at that point is like opening the door to the estrogen. The estrogen's clicking in and doing what it needs to do. When the estrogen is done, it unclicks, it undocks. It's supposed to go to the liver for processing and elimination out of the body. What happens with some of these synthetic estrogens, like for example, pesticides are treated like estrogens in our body. They can dock on hormone cell receptor sites and create weak responses. It's not as direct as a normal estrogen molecule that we produce, still
Mhm.
kind of running around in the body. And I always tell people it's kind of like a kid pushing buttons in a control room, right? Like you don't want a child running around in a control room pushing buttons, but when we have these estrogenic molecules, they're called xenoestrogens because they're not bioidenticals and they're not self produced, they're environmentally produced. When we have these xenoestrogens running around in our system, they're basically turning on cells and having cells do things that normal estrogens would have them do, except they're not supposed to be doing that because they're not an endogenously produced estrogen. So we end up
They sound really like naughty estrogens.
yes, they are exactly like naughty estrogens,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
the problem. And so when we ran your Dutch test, we saw that your estrogens were really high, and that can be because of environmental estrogens, or it can be because sometimes the body's under stress. Sometimes the body is producing the right amount of estrogen, but not eliminating the right amount of estrogen. So testing is not truly at a point where we can say precisely why your estrogens were so high. But those are just some of the reasons as to why estrogens can keep climbing. The other thing that we saw was like your other hormones were in balance. We saw that your progesterone was balanced and your testosterone was balanced. And so it really was like, okay, let's jump in and let's eliminate unwanted estrogens. And so we did that with chemical compounds, all naturally produced by plants, herbs, vitamins, minerals, and we introduced those to your system. And we had to go slow with you. We couldn't go full throttle because your system had been through so much and was really sensitive. And so I can't remember off the top of my head. We started with just half a scoop of the estrogen, of the hormone balance product, right?
Actually, a fourth of a scoop, and even before that, you had me on the calcium deglucarate to start, and, I mean, we, like, really just were dipping our toes in the water, and it was incredible how my body responded just with even a fourth of a scoop.
Yeah.
And I dropped, like, 6 pounds of weight within, like, a week and a half. I mean, it was startling how responsive my body was.
Yeah. I mean, the calcium deglucarate is interesting because some compounds will do what we call like driving detox, and they will kind of force the body to start eliminating unwanted compounds. But that can be too much for people who are sensitive or who've been through a lot. And so instead of kind of like driving detoxification processes in the body, what we do is we kind of bind unwanted estrogens first in the colon with a supplement called calcium deglucarate, and calcium deglucarate kind of grabs onto estrogens in the colon, which otherwise might be recycled up into the body. And so, in a more sensitive client, like that's usually the way to go is you just start off with a calcium deglucarate to kind of prep the body in eliminating some of those estrogens, but not pushing too hard. And then once someone's used to the calcium to glucarate, you introduce a product that from Nutrition Dynamics or Nutridyne. They are a pharmaceutical grade supplement company. They have been in business for over 30 years. They're family owned, follow FDA guidelines called GMPs, Good Manufacturing Procedures. They test all of their products for purity, for potency, for microbial activity, and efficacy. And it's just a top of the line product that I love to use. And they have a shake, a powder that turns into a shake in their line called Hormone Balance. And Hormone Balance has things like DIM and cruciferous vegetable extracts that are known to naturally help the body eliminate unwanted estrogens or naughty
Mhm.
estrogen, you call them. One of the things that happens when our body is holding on to compounds it shouldn't hold on to is that it ends up having us retain that process aids in us retaining water. And so we're retaining water because you were retaining water specifically because your hormones were imbalanced. And then we also retain water in response to toxicity or our liver not being able to process out toxins at an appropriate rate. And what we see is this water retention that, can be resolved and stopped from estrogen detox and supporting detoxification. And, it's the same thing with heavy metals. Like you didn't have heavy metal issues, but back east, like when I was working at my old medical practice, we saw a lot more heavy metal exposure than we do here in Wyoming. And people would be retaining water. And when we use different nutritional compounds to help release heavy metals from the system, not only would their blood values of mercury and aluminum and arsenic and lead come down, but their body composition would change. Though the water in their body would be eliminated. The body would finally feel safe letting go of all this bloat and water retention as it also released proportionately toxins and waste products.
Wow. Wow. And I hope that people from all around the globe find this podcast. I feel so lucky that I was living in a very clean environment here in the Tetons, right on the border of Wyoming and Idaho. And we have just very few people here and very few pollutants. But I'm thinking about all the other listeners of the Heart Chamber podcast who maybe live in big cities and here they're going into heart surgery or recovering, and they have all this other load on their bodies that would keep them from healing really well. And I want everyone to have access to the best chance possible to coming out of heart surgery better than before. I really believe that can happen.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that is really helpful is like before you're going into surgery, there's tests that are ran from the medical team at the hospital or operating surgeon, and they want to see that your blood labs look okay. Well, what I see from those tests when they're ran is we're basically looking at the labs and we're like, the patient's nothing's critical. Lab values that are saying nothing's critically wrong with the patient, nothing should prevent the patient from going into surgery. But how different would it look if we were like, no, let's look at my patient's B vitamin status. Let's look at my patient's vitamin D. Hey, I wonder if they do have heavy metals. Let's look at their inflammation. Let's look at their high HSCRP, high sensitive CRP, which is cardiac inflammation on a much finer
Mhm.
scale, the macro scale that we currently look at cardiac inflammation on in a hospital. Different would surgical outcomes be if we not only said, oh, great, my patient has nothing critically wrong with them, let's pop them into surgery. If instead we were saying, let's run a nutrient panel, let's look at my patient's inflammation. My patient has 2 weeks before surgery, in many instances more if it's elective. And look at inflammation and iron and ferritin and all these different markers that speak to the current state of the client's health far beyond values, and then put them on a few week long or a month long protocol that could help reduce inflammation and really prep their body and their mind for surgery. In life, we say there's moving, death, and divorce, right? Are the three most stressful life circumstances. But in health, we say chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery are the three most stressful things that you can do to the body. And so when we're moving or when we know someone's going to die, or perhaps when we're going through a divorce, there are all these things that we can do: therapy, talking to a friend, journaling, hiring different types of experts to be on our team to help us through. But people don't really think of that right before they're going into surgery. And I think it would be a lot different if we changed that paradigm.
Wow. Amazing, yes, I can't agree more, and when I was prepping for surgery, I had to wait because of COVID. And it gave me a lot of time to work with my therapist on the emotional mental piece, which I think was why I had such a successful surgery. I mean, yeah, I ended up needing 2 more surgeries, but those were just, like, structural issues that had nothing to do with the heart part, and I really think my open heart surgery was not that big of a deal because I was so mentally and emotionally prepared, but I have to wonder also, like, with my IBS, I will just say this, I would have had an easier time in the PCU without getting into details. But, at least all the CNAs felt very useful. I will just leave it at that. They just felt like they had a big purpose with room 317 in the PCU.
Yeah.
Georgie, you and I are gonna start a movement where we are gonna help people go into heart surgery, like, large and in charge. I mean, not large with, like, water bloat, but, like, information, right? Because that's everything. Like,
Yeah.
it just isn't everything you just said, I mean, I don't see any of that chatter on any of the different, like, Facebook groups I'm a part of or talk to people about, like, yeah, they wanna make sure you're not gonna die, and that's about it, and so
To your point, like, we should start this movement, we should start this paradigm, like, it would be a paradigm shift because this is not taught in medical school. Like, in nursing school, I had, like, 1 semester of
Yep.
nutrition. In medical school, you have 1 semester of nutrition. There's not enough conversation about it right now to have it be a thought. Even, like, nutritionists, I see
Mhm,
dietitians getting a master's in nutrition, and it's interesting, like, I've had conversations with dietitians who've just gotten a master's in nutrition and they really have like no idea about toxicity or inflammation or really even how to heal.
mhm,
Like they're not teaching gut healing protocols getting your master's in nutrition. Like you need to search around outside of school and seek this type of training through the Institute of Functional Medicine, IFM, Institute of Clinical Nutrition, like Nutridyne and Designs for Health, and all the pharmaceutical grade nutraceutical companies host seminars for clinicians who want to advance their practices in client support for chronic conditions, but it's not even taught in school. So it's not like,
mhm.
I feel like if more doctors knew, like, oh, these are the tests for inflammation. Oh, we should look at my client's hormones before surgery, like make sure everything's balanced. If only they knew that they might start, but then it comes into question, insurance doesn't cover most of this, right? And so that's like another
Right.
huge taking time off of work, perhaps quitting your job to undergo cardiac surgery, and then the stress that it puts on your body, like your family. And then because alternative and holistic medicine isn't supported by our Western society, it's not recognized by the insurance companies. And so these are all out of pocket expenses, which could be like its just own separate podcast of 30 episodes or something.
Mhm.
Just
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, and I wanna have a whole 'nother episode just talking about how I paid for my surgery because at the time, I was part of a health share and not insurance.
okay.
That was exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll do a part 2 someday, but one thing I wanna go back to talk about is with Nutridyne, and initially, you put me on some supplements to help with inflammation, and I just wanna talk about how much that helped my heart pain because I'm still dealing with, like, vasospasms, endothelial dysfunction. There's a chance I would likely have microvascular disease, which is just kind of an outcome of myocardial bridging and having those arteries unroofed, and I noticed such a big difference when we really worked on the inflammation and bringing down the fluid, and can we talk a little bit about that and I wanna think of, like, some just real easy, tangible ways that our listeners can almost immediately start applying to their lives if, like, they can't get in touch with you or can't afford to, but they can still make some changes in their own health to have less chest pain post-surgery.
Yeah. So what I would say is that, well, again, like I don't treat symptoms. I do like supportive nutritional care.
Mhm.
What I have found is that
True, true.
you want to reduce inflammation in a certain number of ways. So, one of the supplements that I just think is so underutilized is our omega-3 fatty acids. With you, we use a supplement that is called the Pro Resolving Mediator, or PRM Resolve by Nine. And what it's mediating is inflammation. And so PRMs are basically found in omega-3 supplements, but you can get them concentrated into just PRM. So if you have like 1 gram of fish oil, you might get like 0.25 grams of PRMs within that broader fish oil capsule. And the PRMs in fish and omega 3s and in a fish oil capsule are really kind of like finding inflammation and eating away the inflammation in the system. And so for anyone who's undergone major surgery, I always use PRMs and omegas to really support symptoms that can come with inflammation like fluid retention and pain, scar pain and cardiac pain, any type of pain. So I really like the omega-3 fatty acids for that and the PRMs specifically within the larger kind of like omega supplement category. And then I would say curcumin. Curcumin is a supplement that rivals Tylenol and Advil for pain. And that's another supplement that I really like to use. Nutridyne has a supplement called Inflamise, and Inflamise is a really good inflammation reducer. When we were working together, we also did vitamin C 1000 complex. The Vita 1000 complex is amazing because when our body's under stress, when our body's fighting infection, we move through vitamin C as a vitamin much more quickly. So you might have great vitamin C status, but then you might have surgery or get the flu or get a bacterial infection. And we know that the body spills a lot of vitamin C in its urine when it's fighting off infections because it's using the vitamin C. It's
Hmm.
rich in vitamin C. Same thing with vitamin D. Like a lot of my clients who have autoimmune disorders, or even my clients who are bodybuilders, they need more vitamin D than, let's say, like me. Like I might be okay with just sticking with the 5,000 I use daily recommended, and my blood levels might always be normal when as long as I stick with my 5,000 I use a day of vitamin D, my blood levels are usually always going to be normal. But some of my patients with autoimmune disorders, bodybuilders, patients who are under great, great, great amounts of stress, it's not enough for them. They need more. And vitamin D is also antiviral, antibacterial. Every nucleus and every cell in the entire body has a receptor site for vitamin D. Vitamin D is the only vitamin that our body makes. That's how important it is. We take raw ingredients from our external environment, sunlight, and we actually synthesize vitamin D, but we can't make vitamin C or vitamin K or vitamin A or vitamin E or can't make herbs, can't make minerals. So vitamin D is so important that our body has literally learned to make it itself, whereas it has not been able to do that from an evolutionary perspective with any other vitamin. So, and then another vitamin that I'm huge on, and it is a vitamin B complex. And B vitamins are crucial at helping our liver detoxify estrogenic compounds, toxic heavy metals, other glyphosate, pesticides. B complex is so important at boosting our energy and boosting our mood and also flushing out inflammation. We have an inflammatory marker that rises in response to low B vitamin status in the body. And it's a marker that I look at frequently. It's called homocysteine, and it's an inflammatory protein that you usually run with in a cholesterol panel. And if it's high, we know that B vitamins in the client are low, and that it could be a good idea to support that high homocysteine with a B vitamin. And that supporting homocysteine and lowering is going to actually also lower inflammation in the body because it's kind of a sticky inflammatory protein that can oxidize cholesterol and make cholesterol even stickier, which is not great for the heart as well. So those I think are probably the
No.
foundational ones. Did I leave any foundational ones out that you wanted to talk about?
I think that covers it, and it's such a good start. Besides, like, obviously eating a clean diet, not eating any processed foods, you know, and going as clean as you're able. This is a really good start. And for those who maybe don't have access to Nutridyne, is there, like, another brand that you would feel comfortable talking about?
I think when you look at like Nutridyne compared to, well, let's see. So Nutridyne gives discounts on recurring orders, which I like. They do also have sales a few times a year, which is always when I tell my clients to like stock up. Like If you buy your Nutridyne products during a time when there's a sale, you're gonna be with that 20% off, you're gonna be paying about what you might pay at, like, a Whole Foods or something like
Okay.
that to get so they are a little bit more expensive, but if you kind of watch when you buy them, I do like Nordic Naturals for fish oil. I think they do a really good job. They pull out heavy metals and toxins from their products, which is the most important thing because you don't want to be introducing heavy metals into your system while you're trying to get your system healthier with a fish oil.
Right.
And Nature's Made and Nature's Bounty have kind of been staple supplements at CVS for a long time, and they are definitely less expensive. The issue with the supplements that are less expensive is like there's less technology going into the delivery systems. And there's less technology going into like some the Nutridyne capsules like are designed to withstand a certain stomach pH so that they're really getting delivered during a time that they're supposed to be getting delivered. Or one thing that's big in the supplement industry is called buffering. So you can buffer vitamins with minerals to increase the absorptive capacity of the body. And so a lot of times when you're buying supplements that are less costly, they're not buffered with things that will make them as bioavailable to your body. So, but I think Nature's Made do good supplements at CVS that are pretty decent and will definitely like do the job. If you're trying to save a little bit of money, I would certainly look into those too.
Great. Thanks for that breakdown. And I've just come to the acceptance that sometimes you have to pay a little bit more to get the most bang for your buck. And like I said at the beginning, like I've never experienced such an effective, powerful supplement as Nutridyne. And this might feel like a whole infomercial on it. It really isn't. I just am telling my listeners like what really has helped me heal. And I just want to give that to everybody else. It's like I feel like I have found the person, Georgie, and like the supplement that has really helped me through what felt like a very hopeless, difficult time in my life. And real quickly, I just want to also touch on the detox part. Like I said several minutes ago, I didn't know why I needed to go to Nurse Georgie. I just knew I needed to. I didn't really understand why I was signing up. I knew that I had about 20 pounds of weight that for some reason I wasn't losing, and I didn't think I would ever be 134 pounds. And just to help you understand, I'm only 5 feet tall and I'm very petite. And so it just didn't make any sense to be 134 pounds because I go to the gym. I was still trying to get outside, even though my heart was limiting me. And so I think that was probably the main driver to get into Georgie's office. But what I wasn't prepared for was when I did the detox, not only did I have this intense physical detox that Georgie was so gentle in leading me through, thank goodness I have a really good therapist because I also had to emotionally and mentally detox. And as hard as it was, when I came out the other side, it was like I had become like this enlightened being. I didn't realize how much the toxins in my body were weighing me down, and how even though I had talked and talked and talked about my surgeries, it was still really hard, and my mom died in the process, and just with working with a very supportive and very informed nutritionist was like the missing link in my puzzle pieces of like helping Boots heal from a really hard heart surgery. And so it all matters. And the whole purpose of this podcast and bringing Georgie on for this episode is just I want to give to people what I've had the opportunity to experience to help me be my best post heart surgery.
I love that. I love that. I think that like the therapy portion is also like so huge because it's like so many people just try to white knuckle through and like be strong and like get through it. And like when you're holding everything in, like that can make you sicker than anything. So I think that
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
you know, about it with people and like speaking to a therapist and like having your friends and working out, like getting that like your endorphins going. And it's just, it's important. And we did use that the one supplement, the one GABA supplement that's like to support regulatory neurotransmitters in the brain. It's calming and it's soothing. And I think that like just it just seems like you really hit every angle of health and wellness, like mental health, like physical, emotional. So yeah, I'm just really it's
Yeah.
great to be on this podcast and to continue being a part of the healing, you know, not just for you, but for other patients who will be listening, other people who will be listening.
Thank you. And, in the show notes, I'll include ways to get in touch with Georgie if you want. She does incredible telehealth and she has an amazing assistant. And you could also just take a trip to the Tetons and come see her in Jackson, Wyoming. You will not be disappointed, I promise. And so we'll have more information there. But Georgie, anything else you're just itching to tell our listeners today?
I think that it's just a really great time to be jumping into alternative healthcare if you haven't. If you're someone who's relied on the standard Western healthcare system and you're feeling like you're missing something, you're not alone. And there are so many holistic and alternative healthcare providers out there who just are so knowledgeable and so willing and ready to jump in and help. If it's me, great. It's just a really fun, cool community that I'm blessed to be a part of. And it's really great to see that the field is kind of taking off and getting a lot more recognition than it did when I got into it some years back. So, yeah, that's it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for letting me steal a little snippet of your time today. Georgie is busy, thriving in her practice. She's helping so many people. And so I feel really lucky that she shared an hour of her time with us today. So thank you so much, Georgie.
Thank you, Boots. I will talk to you soon.
And that's the show for today. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. The Heart Chamber exists because of you. If you find value in this podcast, consider donating to this cause. Go to theheartchamberpodcast.com and go to the donate link. And hey, while you're there, feel free to leave me a voicemail. I want to hear from you. Lastly, don't forget to leave a review and make sure you subscribe so you never miss another Tuesday edition of The Heart Chamber. Thanks again. Have a great week, and I'll be back next week with more stories of open heart surgery and recovery.